Today, I bring you a video that brings me further from stopping talking about Frozen, where at the very least, it's more positive. Not that I haven't talked good about the franchise before, since I obviously still love it in a special place in my heart, but how I genuinely believe that everything was muddled from the potential that they could have done with how it's regarded as an overrated movie, and how one character generally left unscathed for the most part instead, only shafted by the messy sequel in some form, being in fact the story's main character in Princess Anna, or Queen Anna in Frozen 2 if you want to go with that, because she is the one whom we spend the most time with. The adventure of Frozen is actually through her perspective to restore the missing relationship that she had with her sister and her kingdom that most people might have seemed fearful of, through the use of love and compassion. A personality that does shine through the darkness with a level of optimism that is unheard of, going above and beyond Walt Disney himself. Well, not really that far because we're talking about a fictional character compared to the company's founder, but you really get what I mean with somebody like her in what she brings at the forefront. It's just something great to have for a hero when you compare the original roles that the characters like Elsa had and what they sort of attempted to do in the final film, delegating that to another person as that villain, contrasting the colder reserved nature. That it is fit to have somebody so determined to help others even if they don't see eye to eye or knew about their own personal struggle before but do now. That she fights for those she loves dearly because of how she opened her heart at the very beginning even while it was slowly freezing to death in a cold dark world. Of course, this isn't to say that I don't have issues with her. Sometimes I find her relationships a bit too rushed or basic, but I can still deal with that since it does fit a certain style. So when you chart the journey back from the very beginning, you get a great picture of what Anna is like. She is very enthusiastic about things, wanting to play with her sister who has great powers of ice and snow, and is just a child of pure joy, one that any other child with a vivid imagination would love, adoring others for their unique traits that others might question if that could lead to destruction rather than creation like here, where we also find that her greatest strength is also her greatest weakness in this very scene, pushing hard to have fun with Elsa to the point where she gets worried and struck with ice in her head. That sometimes we can get carried too far even with such optimism, where it leads to dangerous accidents happening, where you learn that she is in fact an impulsive character, quick to judge situations before understanding what is going on around her, that even affects her sister and parents when they ask the trolls for help, causing them to remove memories of magic happening at all, thus building us to the present day events. This is where her quirkiness works quite well because it's always been a trait that's been there since the beginning and gets enhanced by her separation from her sister, to separate two sides that can either be bubbly or cold, not understanding why she's acting like this but determined to get to the bottom of it all, constantly holding out a light of hope her whole life compared to the shuddered fear her sister now displays because of that one very accident. We have talked about how this socially awkward personality doesn't work anymore for Disney, but how Anna actually remains to be an exception because the story itself gives benefit to both positive and negative aspects of this with how they are raised in this very point, that there is something logical about why she feels this way and needs to act like this, and how others around her do act, responding her either validating a little bit of her personality or criticizing it. Her persistent traits she displayed as a child helped her greatly growing up in the life that she knows now, knowing she couldn't spend time with her sister, but doing her best to try and have it back. That loneliness is never the answer to ourselves, and how love and companionship actually means everything, and how loneliness spins off in so many different ways that it is overall bad when their parents die. Loving this scene where they switch from Anna to Elsa, wanting to open a shut door while closing it off for good before more get harmed with the darkness that surrounds them. So when you reach to the present day, we are presented with the opportunity for good to come back in their lives, for the first time in forever for things to happen. This is probably my most favorite song from the film because it still reiterates what Do You Want to Build a Snowman taught us with Elsa and Anna's relationship and the anticipation of Anna getting to interact with people from around the world in a long time since she was a little girl, for the first time in forever. We know at this time that she is 18, a young adult coming of age who wants to find the one true love that most of these fairy tale stories come with because of how love is the theme of this picture. Love constantly entering the picture because that's what she values the most and is the most important thing that life needs anyway. That I'm so ready for this change and will do anything to fulfill it, knowing what was lost from her, causing her to meet Hans in that path to match her claim to romance. This can also be a reflection to Rapunzel in her song with When Will My Life Begin, as those two characters are praised the most for their adorable, quirky personas, wanting the chance to start anew in life, and hence why she and Eugene actually make a cameo in this very song. What she doesn't know in this scene, regards to Anna, is that love is meant for someone else other than what she thinks of. Again, having Elsa sing at the same time to open it up, scared of what comes next, trying to be strong while Anna is exploring the chance to clamor for the love of some man, which should actually be pointed towards that of her sister. The idea that she is striving for to finally have to live her life, that both her and her sister deserve that chance to live again. So again, when she does meet Hans for the first time, it's like looking into a mirror of herself, someone who is out there, someone who's got the same hair and is from a royal family with older siblings. But again, it's just not where the love is supposed to be. It's supposed to help others rather than not help ourselves, as that's what you kind of think of what they're going for with the character of Hans, who I once again have to remind you is a terrible villain, but good enough to show that not everything meets the eye is what we need. That he remains to be her greatest flaw in not experiencing the world with such a short-minded view for love, clinging on to an idea she never had with someone she knew and really loved all these years before. So the first time we get to see them together again is at the coronation ball, where you can actually feel the love that both of them have. There isn't a cold door being shut out by either side, being a bit more comfortable with a slight tinge of awkwardness, where Anna is happy and so are her sister. They are talking, they're getting along like they normally should do as siblings. You might think it's a side effect of her romantical feelings since she's constantly waved at Hans the whole time, but this feels more genuine because she has been attached to her sister since childhood. The memories of the good times are still there, but just not the magic. And Hans here is actually the idea she's trying to clamor for with Elsa, able to find somebody that's easy to accept her with her vulnerabilities of desperate companionship, with love being truly an open door to various things, willing to accept his immediate marriage proposal before asking any questions like any rational person should do. We know that she does this because she lacked that companionship from her separation, where marriage is supposed to be the union between two people for however long that may last. That loneliness is been disregarded because two people are together as one, which should be until death in most cases if love is truly present. Because the true concept that we know of here is that it's never actually good to be alone, which unfortunately does lead to her negative traits trying to affect her to marry someone she just met, as described with Elsa's logical point of view. A viewpoint of a character whom she knows little of other than the surface level facts that seem similar to her own, rather than a deep understanding that love would come from 2 decades of actually knowing somebody. We see that Anna rejects this notion because she feels like Elsa hasn't given that to her at all these years of being rejected and abandoned, thinking that this makes total sense because it comes from true love, that it's supposed to be this way because we're opened up to many people rather than the actual way of doing things. Like, why can't I do this if you haven't shown that same love at all in the past? How does that make sense when I clearly see and feel somebody who kind of gets me, who parallels and relates to me from head to toe? It's just how her stubbornness and lack of knowing what true love is the ultimate downfall of her character, her greatest flaw diving into situations without any rational thought, causing chaos once again when questioning her sister, who becomes hurt and is only sheltering herself with fear, which reverberates when all is revealed. This is what sets off her journey, knowing what the problem truly is, the element of harboring an element of nature that most can potentially look back upon negatively. That even while they were arguing beforehand, she still has the love of her sister wanting to help her as she drives away from the kingdom. Not like she was ever bitter or outright angry in that instance with her sister, but trying to understand why she decided to shut the world out, not knowing the anxiety she has or the burden she has with ice that makes one fearful of harming others. That Anna also thought she was the problem, not wanting to spend time with someone as bubbly as her or whatever she might have thought. And I say this because you notice she constantly puts herself down as nothing too special and just an ordinary girl. Where the thing you have to love about this character is how selfless she is. Of course she was looking for true love with Hans or anyone else just for her own desire, but she never stops caring about others when people like the Duke are so quick to judge them as monsters, or Hans not sure if you can actually trust Elsa to do the right thing or not harm her. That the love of her sister is the most important thing to her more than anything else in her life, because that's where her life came from, inside the heart of the family. Another trait you get to see with her is that she's also open to seeing other views, even while she's still stubborn enough to believe what she finds to fit her loving worldview. The perspective that's introduced with Kristoff being on the outside and knowing things differently from her sheltered castle life, and the relationship she has with Hans, which is genius on the movie's part for the best character to have others outside of that spend time with Snow constantly rather than herself, or the selfish reaction of that, contrasting Kristoff and Elsa and Hans and Anna, reminding her that you can't marry someone you just met. You need to know who they are and what they're like. That she still dismisses such a notion connection but doesn't outright completely shut it out because her personality is still open and determined to do things for others, diving into danger when she doesn't need to, when she's also skilled enough to face them if her goal is within her reach. The spirit of fearlessness that drives those forward against those who do hold such fear. And even while she freaked when Olaf started talking, she immediately accepted him and gave him a carrot nose, knowing a piece of her own childhood with the snowman Elsa built in the past. A connection bridge of understanding for her to learn in one way that also wants to understand the world around them. That he looks at things the way a child usually shows, and how that came from Elsa and Anna as two children who loved each other dearly and wanted to have fun. The close connection that pushes her further and further towards her ultimate goal, whether it be good or potentially bad based on how her sister reacts to things. Just like how she constantly pushes her again, but in a clumsily positive way with a reprise of For the First Time in Forever. I like that she does this and it takes more time for her to do so because it still technically has been this way for the majority of their lives, and more of a test of spirit of determination or stubbornness if you like to put it that way, to break through the most coldest of hearts, even when her heart gets frozen herself when Elsa strikes her. The moment of fear to finally turn against her because it's just too much, but how it's really not when Anna persists while Elsa resists, where her greatest battle, other than the perceived Hans, is just dealing with Elsa's own heart, resistant to any change manifested in Marshmallow as this big threatening villainous force, the object of fear trying to stop anything from coming in, where she tries to throw a snowball at the snowman for some reason before Kristoff warns them to escape and solve things differently. This is where the noticeable change that needs to be solved happens, with her hair turning white representing the heart growing colder. Not that she's going to be cold-hearted in that sense of the word, but you know what I mean by when she becomes a frozen sculpture, and she needs to rush to fix those problems that are freezing the heart. And even in the worst scene in the film, she does get something very meaningful to help her journey with Elsa in Fixer Upper and the Trolls, where despite them being very stupid and contradictory to how Kristoff perceives love trying to marry a man you just met, it's more about opening up people to love, like Elsa, that they are secretly or unknowingly teaching Anna that a fixer-upper is just to fully express love for someone else for who they are, that they cannot change someone into something else, but how love can actually show them to be the best they can be and accepted if people do learn to love of what they can really do. Like, if you look at one of the lines in the song, it says that his isolation is confirmation of his desperation for human hugs. Where yes, they're talking about Kristoff in the sense not being able to have human friends or other than Trolls and Sven, but how that's actually a double meaning of Elsa and Anna that are desperate to get out of their kingdom of isolation. They don't want to be alone and they clearly need each other in this instance. People make bad choices when they live in such fear with stress and anger taking over, but how love stops all of that, bringing out the best. These signs are all very important to Anna's entire character, who she really is and what she needs to do that is disguised through a song about romantical love with a reindeer boy that can be a reflection of her own sister. Until Peppy comes in and warns them that only true love will be able to stop this without any further context, one where you're thrown into several different directions of what that even could mean, especially through our own hero's perspective still rushing towards Hans. You also realize here that she hasn't stopped loving Hans either, even through the mind's eye that says that might be Kristoff, but through an unwavering faith of an idea she still thinks is right because of how her love connected to her as this quickest source of inspiration, the one that's supposed to be towards Elsa rather than these two. And after when Hans twists the fact that he is a villain, it kinda disrupts that balance, where without these lessons on her journey with Olaf and Kristoff and Elsa herself, she actually would be lost forever, not having no great definition of what love truly is until he comes back to save her incidentally. Because the importance of Olaf in this scene, other than to redirect Anna to Kristoff after she realizes what he did and what he loves himself now, that isn't that much great of a relationship, is just to reiterate who Anna really is and what she is meant to do, what love is coming from the perspective of a snowman.
Love is putting someone else's needs before yours, like, you know, how Kristoff brought you back here to Hans and left you forever.
Just like how Fixer Upper was supposedly meant for Kristoff and Anna, this statement upon how some things are worth melting for is in fact what Anna needs to do for her sister, that she is worth it all compared to what Hans, Kristoff, or the Duke might say in some form, where we as the audience are coming with the knowledge from their very youth that it was always about their relationship above anyone else, about her trying to fix what was broken because everyone else managed to screw that up coming from a place of fear rather than caring love. Even her damn parents, despite showing it on the surface, but confirming to them in the most dumbest fates possible. So when making the choice between life and death, she does choose the path of life to save her sister, what true love actually looks like, rather than what she initially thought it could have looked like. Stopping Hans from killing her and of course the false equivalence of her romantic love from Kristoff, the duty of the selfless being in service of others, especially her sister. And more than anything, she demonstrates what it truly means to be a good person, a good hero in that case, putting people before herself and solving Elsa's greatest problems with their powers and her own loneliness, where they are finally together as one again. And that is an event that continues through the finale, giving things away to the people she loves the most and providing the kingdom with a loving queen who makes awesome ice sculptures and skating rinks. It's not about her in this case, it's about everyone else. Everything she needed in her own personality came from having others in her life rather than herself, because if she was alone, she would have nothing, feeling that loneliness is her greatest problem that she struggles with and would surely die if that were the case to happen. And of course in the sequel, she does manage to show some maturity from the mistakes of the past, having what she finally wanted in that family being together and standing strong on her own to solve the problems that they need. That no matter what, even though Frozen 2 sucks, she still stayed true to who she is with the loving and caring compassion for her fellow man, and more importantly who her sister is for what they needed to be, to really hold up who they are and why it was suited for her to be queen at the end, demonstrating that same love she held for the first to become the fit leader and queen of Arendelle on her own. That Anna is a character that constantly strives to do the right thing if it is in service of others rather than her own personal gain, how she just cares too deeply about them to even stop, and that's why I really think she is a good character on her own. That her selfless determination and compassion is where a true hero can be formed by, and why we can look back upon Frozen with such a positive outlook. That optimists are what we strive for to see in life, and how important love will carry us through to the very end, even if the world around us kinda sucks, if you get what I mean in both senses of that word. So when you look back upon what Frozen is about, just look to that bubbly redhead to see where the story really lies, and then you will be able to see and make the most amazing changes that life has to behold. And I'm all done now. Goodbye.